How do we add and subtract decimals? So it's like units, you always have to line them up. So here's an example question. 3 plus 1.205 plus 20.016. Also notice how I'm reading it. So I'm reading 1.205. Yeah, 2. So I'm saying 205. This is important actually. People make this a subtle thing, but you don't say 1.205. That would be wrong because someone listening to you might think you've said 205, which is completely separate from 0.205. Okay, so an important thing is, this is just me being a math nerd, but after decimal you pronounce each digit. Okay, you no longer can say, just like when it's a normal number, we don't say 205, we usually say 205, but in decimals you pronounce each digit. Okay, so I'm gonna write that here. So this is 20, which is fine, 0.016. That's how you would read it. Okay, so this was just a little segue to talk about that. I'm going to erase this here. I'll actually leave it in the notes. I'll add it. So what do you do? Okay, step number 1, line up the decimal. What does that mean? So technically all three of these numbers have a decimal. If it's not there, you can always just add a zero and add a decimal and add as many zeros as you want. So let me just show you that over here. So any number 3, right? If I just say 0.0000, whatever comes after, as long as these are zeros, it doesn't impact the value. Just like if I'd said 0003, well, it doesn't make a difference. That's just 3. So the same way, we just use this to our advantage if we're lining up for decimal. So instead of 3, notice I have written 3.000 because the biggest decimal place was 3 dp. 3 decimal places and 3 decimal places. So I know my sum is going to be set up as a 3 decimal sum. So I'm just going to do it here. So I've put the first number here. The second one, just line up the decimals. That's the important thing. So decimal jo hai, ye I've lined it up, and now left pe 1 and then right pe 205. So I've written that in a line, nice little line. And then finally, this is where it's important to line it up. Don't just write 3.00, 1.205 आपने सही लिख दिया and then you just do 20 point something. Your decimal is not in line with these decimals, right? So you have to line it up. Make sure you start with the decimal, put the decimal here, and then see, okay, decimal ke left pe it's 20. So I'll just put 20 here as is, and right pe it's 016. So I've written that. So that's it. Once you've lined up, it is like normal addition that you learned, which is start from the right. And just like you used to carry if it's bigger than 10 and otherwise you just add, that's the exact concept. So the first one, 5 plus 6 is what I'm doing. I'm just focusing on the rightmost. That gives me 11. So just like before, I can write the unit, the 1 here, but I will carry 1 up here. Okay. Then you move 1 unit to the left. So ye wala ho gaya. Now I'm thinking, okay, 1 carried tha, 1 plus 1, I'll get 2 here. Then I move on to the next one. There's no carry, so it's just 0, 2, 0, which is another 2. And now importantly, make sure you put this decimal. I used to put it pehle se ke. I know when I'm solving, 3 point whatever, 20 point something. When I start my sum, I put the decimal pehle and then I start doing it. Because if you forget it and afterwards you're trying to figure out where the decimal was, or if you just forget, then it's completely wrong on an exam. So, and now finally we're back down to just normal addition because अब हम units पे आ गए. So 3 plus 1 is 4, and then in the tens place I have 20. So you should get 24.221. Now, quick note, subtraction is exactly the same. You just have to line things up, and then just like normal subtraction, you start from the right. You start from here and you go towards the left. So let's try this. Let's try a 45 point. So the question is 45.3173 minus 1.0120. The reason you need to know the skill is this could be on paper 1, where calculators are not allowed. So you will be expected to know decimal, addition and subtraction. Please don't rely on your calculators. So just starting here, 3 minus 0 is 3, 7 minus 2 is 5, 1 minus 1 is 0, 3 minus 0 is 3, then importantly decimal, 5 minus 1 is 4, and 4 minus 0 is 44. So fairly simple. Now what about multiplying decimals with each other? So it sounds really complicated, but you'll see that it's not that complicated. The steps are, number one, ignore the decimal. Anytime in math when I'll say, or anyone says ignore, it doesn't mean just completely forget about it. It means you can somehow get rid of it. So we will count decimal places. Okay, we'll multiply, that's step 2, and then we'll re-add. So we've ignored it, but only for a bit. We'll re-add the decimal. What do I mean? So here's an example: 2.16 multiplied by 0.02. So what I'd like to do is I will literally write, these are 2 decimal places, so I'll say 2 dp, and this is 2 decimal places, so I'll write 2 dp. So total, I know it's going to be 4 decimal places. You'll see in a second why. Okay, so if they're getting multiplied, the decimal places will get multiplied. So you'll see. But basically what happens is, get rid of the decimal then. So you will just be left with 216 times 2, right? Whatever the digits are. So 0.02, if I get rid of the decimal, I'm just left with 2. That's fine. So you multiply them as normal. If you're used to doing it like this, that's totally fine. 6 2s are 12, 2 1s are 2, plus 1 is 3, and 2 2s are 4. Okay, so I got 432. What's the last step? Always remember, last step, you have to now put the decimal back in. All right, and this is why you need the 4 dp. So दो decimals इधर से आए थे, दो second number से आए थे. So I need a decimal after 4 places, starting from the right. Okay, so imagine decimal is here, and I'm just gonna bounce the decimal. So you go 1, 2, 3, and if there's not a 4th number, you add a 0 here, 4. So the decimal bounces to here, and that's your answer. You get final answer 0.0432. Okay, now why is that the case? Because anytime I explain something and you don't get it, you should be curious to say, wait, why does this decimal place rule work? Well, the logic is what I'd explained before, which is 2.16 times 0.02 is really, if I get rid of this decimal, I can divide by 100 because 2 places. And same here, if I get rid of the decimal, I can divide by 100. So notice what I'm left with is 216 from fractions. Multiply ho rahe na? Numerator with numerator and denominator with denominator. So what I was left with once I got rid of the decimal was 216 times 2 in the numerator, and niche these hundreds, the zeros, do decimal, this is why I was saying do zeros idhar ke, it became 4 zeros, right? And anytime you do that dividing, you'll see on the next, I'll move on to it, but anytime you're dividing by 10 key powers, that's just putting a decimal back in. So this is exactly what I did in the numerator. I did this separately over here. I got my 432, and the last step was, well, I still have to put the decimal back because it's getting divided by 10,000, and that meant putting a 0 and this and getting rid of the 10,000. So that's why these two match. Now let's try dividing decimals, another key skill that you need to know for this exam and in general, I think even in life. Here we go. So 63.6 divided by 0.012. It looks complicated, but as usual, we're going to get rid of the decimal first. So step number 1, right here, write it as, we know divided just means as a fraction, this over that, right? So let's just write it like that and see what we can do. Now, this is where the decimal urana tip comes, right? So if I get rid of this decimal, then there's 1 digit here. So I just have to put niche on the other side into 10 because 1 0. What about this decimal? If I get rid of it, there's 1, 2, 3 decimal places. So on the other side above, I have to put 3 zeros. Okay, let me do it in another color so it's clear why I'm getting this. So 1, I got rid of the 1 as well here. So 1, 2, 3 decimal places. So 1, 2, 3 here. If I simplify, I'm left with 636 divided by 12 into what happens आपस में इन zeros का, I can even cancel these a bit. So one of these zeros cancels with one of these. I'm just left with into 100. Okay, so the final thing that you're left with is we just have to do 63600 divided by 12. And that's the same as 63.6 divided by 0.012. So that's a cool thing about decimals is it's all powers of 10. So it's very easy to simplify and do this cutting that I've done here. So now I'm left with, yeah, 63,600 divided by 12. I'm just going to divide like normal, but if you can simplify so it looks like both are even numbers, before I do a long messy long division like this, let me just simplify it. So if I divide both upar and niche by 2, I know I'll get 6 and I'll get 2 3s are 6. Now I'm looking at the 3. So what am I doing? पहले मैंने 6 को divide किया 2 से, I got 3. Now I'm dividing 3 by 2. 2 1s are 2, but 1 carry हो गया 16 के साथ. Then 8, because 2 8s are 16 and 0 0. That's how I get this. I want you to get really good at this cutting thing. Like let's say this was 632 divided by 2, right? So when you cut here, a core skill on your exam is to be able to do this right here instead of now starting a separate thing like this and dividing by 2. It takes too much time. So it's doing it in your head. So dividing by 2, I'll do the steps sort of again, which is I'm just thinking 6 divided by 2 is 3. Now I look at the next digit. 3 divided by 2, I can do 2 1s are 2. And क्या रह गया? 3 था ना, but 2 1s are 2, so I'm carrying 1. The 1 gets carried to the 6, so this now becomes 16. What is 16 divided by 2? It's 8. Fine, now this is taken care of. Move on to the next digit, which is 3 again. Okay, 2 1s are, we've done this before, 2 1s are 2. 1 carry कहाँ गया? 12. ये 2 बन गया 12. And now let's divide this 12 by 2 and you get 6. So this is how I want you to get very comfortable doing this, because exam you'll have to simplify a lot of fractions. And here's another example, right? Like even now what you've got, you can do it once again. So let me divide by 2 again. 2 3s are 6. What about this? So I'm dividing 3 by 2. 2 1s are 2. 1 carry 11. 2 5s are 10. I still couldn't divide, so this 1 still carries. It comes here. Now what? 18. 2 9s are 18, and now 0 0. So quite tricky, and I thought I should explain these steps, but that's how you simplify it down to the smallest so that your long division is the easiest that it can be. So now I've just set this up as a long division. 15,900 andar aa gaya, and I'm trying to divide it by 3. Okay, and now you proceed as usual. If you could do what we've been doing, which is if you are comfortable enough, right, you could just do 3 1s are, 3 5s are 15, and 3 3s are 0 0. But if you want, you can just set it up like this, because okay, now we're used to 1 nahi divide hota. So look at the next digit, which is 1 5 15. So 3 5s are 15, cross cross, bring the 9 down. 3 3s are 9, cross, and now you can bring the zeros down, which is 0 0. Okay, so that's the answer, the final answer of what is 63.6 divided by 0.012. It is 5300. Importantly, unlike multiplying, at this step I don't need to put the decimal back in. We took care of it by first dealing with the decimal and making sure we've got our zeros right. Okay.